Relax, focus on your goals, and rise again. The world will always seem like it's running faster than you can keep up. There's a constant noise, expectations, comparisons, the race of others, the fear of being left behind. But what if the race was never yours to run in the first place? What if all you ever needed to do was pause? You see, most people mistake stillness for laziness. They think that to progress one must always be in motion, always striving, always pushing. But a tree doesn't grow by stretching its branches forcefully toward the sky. It grows because it rests in the soil, drawing nourishment slowly, letting the sun warm it, and trusting the process of becoming. So when life knocks you down, when your plans crumble like dry leaves underfoot, don't rush to fix everything. Don't scramble to rebuild what broke. Instead, breathe. Let the dust settle. There's a kind of wisdom that only rises in silence, a clarity that emerges when you stop clinging to what was and start listening to what is. The goals you've set, they're not gone. They haven't vanished into some unreachable realm. They are waiting, not for you to panic, but for you to remember. There's a rhythm in this universe, a tide that pulls and a wind that whispers. Your setbacks are not failures. They are pauses in the symphony. And in that pause, you can retune your instrument. You can align your thoughts, your heart, your inner compass. You can find your way, not by rushing toward the goal, but by becoming the kind of person to whom the goal naturally flows. Don't think you must do everything at once. You are not a machine. You are not here to conquer life like a battlefield. You are life, flowing, unfolding, dancing. The same intelligence that guides the stars, that moves the ocean, that paints the colors in a butterfly's wings, is moving through you. It knows how to bring you where you need to be, but you must get out of your own way. Stop trying to force success like it's some enemy to be captured. Let it come to you like a tide comes to the shore. Focus on the vision, yes, but hold it gently. Don't crush it with desperation. Let it live and breathe in your mind, just as you would let a candle flicker in the quiet of the night. And when the time is right, and it always is, you will rise. Not because you fought your way back with clenched fists, but because you surrendered your fear, trusted your path, and walked with quiet certainty. Nevertheless, the journey, you are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be for the next version of yourself to emerge. The version that's wiser, deeper, softer, stronger. So relax. Focus not on what the world is doing, but on your own center. Let that be your anchor. And from that place of calm knowing, take one step, then another, and slowly, quietly, beautifully, you rise again. There is a kind of stillness that the modern world has forgotten, a silence so profound it unsettles those who cannot sit with themselves. And yet this stillness is not emptiness. It is alignment. It is the quiet precision of a soul reorienting itself with the deeper rhythm of life. In this stillness, everything begins to move. not through effort, but through alignment with what already is. The reason many people find themselves drained and lost is not because they lack energy or discipline, but because they are constantly at war with the natural timing of their own lives. They mistake force for progress and noise for purpose. But true transformation does not occur in the storm. It occurs in the calm that follows. When the inner self listens instead of reacts, and when one no longer runs out of fear of falling behind. Most of what we call urgency is merely the fear of being left out, of being invisible, of becoming irrelevant. It's the result of looking outward for confirmation that we're on the right path. But the most powerful shifts happen when we stop seeking validation from others and begin to trust the subtle movement of our own being. When you sit in stillness, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, you begin to realize that nothing is truly broken, nothing truly lost. You're not late. You are in the pause between breaths. People often associate relaxation with laziness, as if the absence of stress must mean the absence of direction. But nothing could be further from the truth. The tree does not anxiously grow taller, nor does the sun worry about rising on time. There is an order to life, a rhythm that doesn't require panic to function, and we are not separate from this rhythm. We are a part of it, made from the same intelligence, born from the same cosmic breath. When you allow yourself to be still, you return to that rhythm. You realign. You remember. The modern mind, conditioned by deadlines and metrics, finds this concept deeply uncomfortable. It wants to calculate, to plan, to ensure success by predicting every outcome. But alignment is not about prediction. It's about listening. It's about becoming so attuned to the quiet truth within you that decisions no longer feel like gambles, but like remembering something you already knew. This internal tuning cannot happen in chaos. It requires space. Space to feel, to sense, to breathe. And in this space, clarity dawns. The answer is not to add more action or to double down on your efforts. It is to be still long enough to feel the pull of your own truth again. The answer is not. The answer is and yet, and yet, and yet, and children. This is not passivity. It is not surrendering to fate in a way that removes your power. On the contrary, it is the act of reclaiming your power from everything that falsely claimed it. People, timelines, fears, expectations. It is remembering that you are not a machine built to perform, but a soul that experiences, that feels, that grows. And growth, real growth, cannot be forced. It must be nourished. It must be allowed. Stillness is a kind of sacred waiting, a space in which the soil settles after a storm, making room for new seeds to take root. When you allow yourself to rest, not just physically, but mentally, you create space for inspiration to reach you. You open yourself to ideas that were always waiting at the edge of your awareness, but could not speak through the noise. You begin to feel again, and feeling is the language of the soul. You start to understand that what you desire is not outside of you, not something to be grasped or controlled, but something that is drawn to the essence of who you are, when that essence is undisturbed by doubt. Yet in this stillness, goals stop being a source of pressure and become invitations, callings that echo from the future version of you, inviting you to walk toward them, not run. The frantic chase makes the goal seem farther away, but alignment collapses distance. It makes the journey smooth, fluid, inevitable. This kind of movement doesn't drain you, it energizes you. You no longer feel the need to prove anything. You're not building for approval. You're not rising to be seen. You are moving because the movement itself feels natural, because it is in harmony with who you are at your core. There's also healing in this state. Wounds that you've been ignoring come into view, not to hurt you again, but to show you what still needs gentleness. And in offering that gentleness, you recover parts of yourself that you thought were lost to time. Your strength returns, not as a shield, but as a quiet confidence, an unshakable calm. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to struggle to make progress. You are simply alive, and that is enough. In a world addicted to speed, stillness is rebellion. In a society that rewards burnout, rest is a radical act. And yet it is in this act that your true self re-emerges. Not the version trying to fit into molds, but the one who was always enough before the world convinced you otherwise. When you return to that stillness, you return to the origin of your power. You remember that before the deadlines, before the failures, before the noise, you were whole, and you still are. The moment you detach from the race, you begin to feel the texture of your own existence again. There's a certain madness in the way society pushes people forward, as if there's a universal timeline everyone must obey. Get educated by this age, earn this much by that age, achieve that milestone, or be deemed a failure. But life doesn't operate according to the clock of the masses. It moves in its own rhythm, tailored uniquely to each soul's journey, and yet so many abandon their own path to run along the road built by others, believing that faster is better, that louder is stronger, that more visible is more valuable. They never pause to ask, who set the rules of this race? Who decided what matters? It's tempting to run just because everyone else is running. It's easy to assume the race matters because the crowd is large. But crowds gather for all sorts of reasons. Many not noble, not wise, not truthful. The noise of others can drown out the whispers of your own soul if you're not careful. And once you lose touch with that inner whisper, you begin living a life of reaction instead of reflection. Your actions become about keeping pace, not about moving in purpose. You may appear successful to the world, but internally there is a hollow ache, a quiet grief for the self you abandoned in your pursuit of approval. True freedom begins the moment you stop comparing your pace to someone else's. The moment you understand that your path isn't behind or ahead of anyone else, it's just different. The seed of a bamboo plant may lie dormant for years before breaking the surface. But when it grows, it shoots up with astonishing speed. The rose and the oak tree bloom in different seasons. Yet no one questions their timing. Why then do we question our own? Why do we fear being late when the universe never rushes? When you detach from the race, you don't become stagnant. You become intentional. Every step begins to carry weight again, not because you're under pressure, but because it finally has meaning. You're no longer chasing shadows, but following light. The pressure to outshine others dissolves, replaced by the peace of expressing your true self. You begin to realize that the goal was never to arrive quickly, but to arrive whole. Detachment from the race also allows you to reclaim your energy. Running on the path of others is exhausting, not because it's difficult, but because it's misaligned. It drains you in ways that don't make sense until you pause. Then the fatigue sets in, the kind of tiredness that isn't cured by sleep, by truth. And the truth is this: you were never meant to run someone else's race. You were meant to create your own, a path not marked by speed, but by authenticity. A journey not defined by how visible you are to the crowd, but by how connected you are to your purpose. This doesn't mean ambition is wrong. It means your ambition must be yours. It must arise from your values, not from the noise of comparison. You can still climb mountains, still reach goals, still become extraordinary, but on your terms, in your time, by your design. That is the kind of success that satisfies. That is the kind of achievement that doesn't require a mask or a sacrifice of your soul. To detach is not to disconnect, it's to reconnect deeply, honestly, courageously with yourself, to ask, what do I actually want? What brings me peace? What makes me feel alive? These are not selfish questions. They are sacred ones. They lead you away from performance and toward purpose. And in that space, something remarkable happens. You stop running toward something and start becoming something. You no longer move for applause, you move from alignment. The beauty of stepping out of the race is that it allows you to see clearly. The blur of motion fades. The anxiety of being too late dissolves. You begin to notice the details of life again, the way the light moves through the trees, the way silence soothes your thoughts, the way your breath feels when you slow down. These are not distractions. These are reminders. Reminders that life was never meant to be a finish line. It was always meant to be an experience, a presence, a dance. There's also a hidden cost to staying in the race too long. The longer you run someone else's path, the harder it becomes to remember your own. The longer you fake a version of yourself to gain acceptance, the more estranged you become from your real self. That's when the quiet desperation sets in. That's when success feels like emptiness and achievement feels like loss. Because you reach the summit, but not your summit. You live the dream, but not your dream. Letting go of the race is not easy. It requires courage to step away from what everyone else is chasing. It demands stillness in a world that idolizes motion. But it is in that stillness that you will find your power again. Not the power to impress, but the power to live truthfully. The power to rise not as a replica, but as something original. Something rare, something real. And that kind of life doesn't need to be rushed. It doesn't need a crowd. It doesn't need permission. It simply needs you, calm, aware, grounded, and ready to follow your own rhythm. There is no timeline on authenticity, no clock ticking on inner peace. When you detach from the illusion of the race, you enter the reality of your own becoming. And that truly is where life begins. There's a strange paradox at the heart of desire. The more desperately you cling to it, the farther away it seems to move. It's as though the tighter you grasp, the more it slips through your fingers. And yet, when you let go, not of the vision itself, but of the tension around it, everything begins to shift. Holding the vision does not mean obsessing over it. It means nurturing it like a sacred fire, not smothering it with fear. The most powerful intentions are the ones that are held lightly, but believed deeply. There is a kind of magic in trusting your desire enough to release it into the stream of life, confident it knows the way back to you. The mind is conditioned to equate pressure with progress. You are told that unless you worry, unless you obsess, unless you constantly visualize the outcome, you are not serious about your goal. But what if the opposite were true? What if true belief looks like ease? What if confidence wears the face of calm, not chaos? The tree does not worry whether its leaves will grow in spring. It simply abides in its nature, and growth happens. The river does not calculate how to reach the ocean. It flows, and trust carries it forward. Likewise, your goal is not something you must wrestle with. It's something you must align with. That alignment begins the moment you stop fearing whether it will come to pass and start knowing that it already belongs to you in some unseen realm. The difference between desire and desperation lies in the energy you give to it. Desire feels expansive, open, gentle. Desperation is tight, panicked, aggressive. One draws your vision closer with grace, the other repels it through resistance. This is not spiritual theory. It's the observable nature of energy. The anxious mind builds tension, and tension disrupts flow. When you hold the vision with ease, when you relax your grip and let the image rest quietly in your imagination, it begins to take root, not in the realm of effort, but in the realm of faith. It moves from being something you chase to something that starts unfolding in your reality. Mental and emotional clarity is key. When your vision is accompanied by frantic energy, it becomes clouded. You lose touch with the purity of the idea. You start building expectations instead of allowing inspiration. And expectation, when tainted by fear, becomes a burden. You begin measuring time, outcomes, and comparing yourself with others. The vision that once ignited your spirit becomes a source of stress. You feel like you're failing not because you are, but because you've allowed pressure to poison what should have remained sacred. But when you hold the vision gently, it lives in a space of freedom. It breathes. It grows without being forced. It becomes a friend walking beside you, not a finish line you have to chase. There is also a profound respect in this kind of holding, a respect for the process, for the timing, for the unfolding. When you no longer demand that your goal manifest on your schedule, you make room for a higher intelligence to participate in the creation. You make space for opportunities that you could never have planned. You invite synchronicity. You become receptive instead of reactive. And receptivity is a superpower. Most people block their blessings not because they're not working hard, but because they're too busy worrying to notice the signs. When you stop worrying, you start noticing. When you stop pushing, you start allowing. And in that allowing, life begins to move in your favor. This doesn't mean you stop taking action. It means your actions are no longer driven by fear. They are guided, not forced, inspired, not panicked. You act not because you're afraid the dream will vanish, but because you know it's already yours, and your steps are simply the dance toward it. The steps feel lighter. The journey feels more joyful. You're no longer walking with a weight on your back, but with light in your heart. This is not passive. This is powerful. It's the kind of power that comes from being rooted in inner certainty, not external noise. When you hold the vision gently, you also become more resilient. You are not shattered by delays, nor discouraged by detours. You understand that everything contributes to the becoming, even the silence, even the waiting, even the moments when it seems like nothing is happening. You know that the seed grows long before it breaks the surface. You learn to trust the soil. You learn to trust yourself. You learn to trust that what's meant for you will never pass you by. You learn to trust it. There is a beautiful rhythm that begins to emerge when you adopt this mindset. Your days become lighter, your thoughts more spacious. You don't wake up with a sense of dread, but with quiet anticipation. You stop asking, what if it doesn't happen, and begin asking, what if it's already on the way? That simple shift changes everything. It brings peace into your process. It restores joy to your journey. And joy is the most magnetic state you can inhabit. When you are joyful, you are in harmony with abundance. You are a match for the very reality you're creating. People around you might not understand. They may think you're being careless. They may say you need to try harder. But they don't know what you know, that you are not building your future with frantic energy, but with quiet confidence, that you are not shouting your desires to the universe, but whispering them in faith, that you are not running out of time, you are aligning with it. To hold the vision gently is to become like the sky, vast, open, and calm. Storms may come and go, clouds may pass, but the sky remains. Your vision is the same. It may get clouded by moments of doubt, by waves of emotion, by the distractions of the world, but beneath it all, it is steady. It is waiting for you to stop trying to own it and instead allow it to be. This is how creation really works. Not from tension, but from trust. Not from force, but from flow. You don't have to chase what belongs to you. You only have to become a space where it feels welcome to arrive. And to do that, you hold the vision, not with panic, but with peace. Not with clenched fists, but with open hands. Not with noise, but with stillness. That is the true art of manifestation. That is the real power of belief. Trust is not something that needs to be earned from life. It's something that must be returned to it. Deep down, you already know how to trust. You were born with it. Before fear was taught to you, before doubt became your constant companion, you trusted completely. You trusted that your needs would be met, that the world was safe, that you were meant to be here. Somewhere along the way, through disappointments, betrayals, and the cold language of logic, that trust was traded for control. You started believing that unless you planned every detail, pushed every limit, and micromanaged your future, life would forget about you. But that's not how nature works. That's not how creation works. The same intelligence that carved rivers through stone, that hung the stars in perfect balance, that brings seasons right on time, that same intelligence lives in you. And it does not need your fear. It needs your faith. There is a natural flow to everything. When you observe life with stillness, you begin to notice that everything moves with a kind of intelligence. Birds migrate at the right time. Flowers bloom when the conditions are just right. The tides rise and fall in perfect rhythm. Nothing is forced, nothing is rushed, and yet nothing is ever late. So why is it that human beings, who are part of this very same cosmic rhythm, insist on controlling, predicting, and resisting what is already unfolding in perfect harmony? The truth is, control is exhausting. It gives the illusion of safety, but at the cost of peace. The more you try to force things into place, the more friction you create, and friction always slows you down. You don't need to control the path, you need to trust that there is a path, one uniquely tailored to you, even if others can't see it, even if you can't always see it. Trust isn't blind optimism. It's the deepest form of wisdom. It's knowing that even when you can't see the whole picture, you're still part of a masterpiece in progress. And you allow yourself to trust the natural flow of life. You stop grasping at signs and start becoming the sign. You no longer chase answers. You allow them to come to you. You realize that your job is not to force doors open, but to knock with calm expectation and allow the right ones to open on their own. And sometimes that means sitting in the hallway a little longer than you expected. But even that waiting has purpose. Even the pauses are part of the dance. Many people spend their lives in resistance, resisting what is, clinging to what was, fearing what might be. And in doing so, they miss the gentle current that's trying to carry them forward. Life doesn't want to harm you. It wants to teach you, to shape you, to prepare you for what's next. But it can only do that if you stop thrashing against its flow. Imagine trying to swim upstream when the current is already taking you exactly where you're meant to go. You waste energy. You feel defeated. But the moment you relax, lift your head, and surrender to the direction of the current, you find ease, you find momentum, you find that the journey can carry you farther and faster than your effort ever could. This is the secret known by those who seem to move through life with grace. It's not that they have no challenges. It's that they have stopped fighting the wind. They use it. They trust it. They let it guide their sails. When something falls apart, they don't immediately try to glue it back together. They listen, they observe, they ask, what is life making space for now? What door is closing so that another may open? They trust the timing, even when it doesn't make sense. They trust the delay, even when it hurts. Because they know that everything is part of the same sacred pattern, a pattern that only reveals itself in hindsight, but must be trusted in the present. Trusting the natural flow doesn't mean you stop dreaming or desiring. It means you no longer build your identity around your expectations. You no longer panic when things don't happen on your schedule. You stop interpreting detours as punishments. Instead, you start seeing them as divine redirections. You begin to recognize that what you thought was a delay was actually protection. That what you thought was rejection was actually refinement. Life always hears what you want, but it also knows when you're ready. And sometimes the waiting is not because life is unsure, but because it's preparing you to receive something you can't yet hold. In this space of trust, you find yourself living more gently, more patiently. You notice the present moment again. the way light falls on your skin, the feeling of breath in your chest, the sound of your own thoughts slowing down. These are not small things. These are doorways, doorways into alignment, into clarity, into peace. The future stops being a monster to tame and becomes a mystery to welcome. And in that welcome, you unlock something most people never discover: peace before the outcome, joy before the arrival, fulfillment before the finish line, the ability to move with effortless flow, regardless of incompletion, the joy that comes. The world may still rush around you, people may still chase and grasp and strive, but you, grounded in trust, will move differently. You will act not from anxiety but from awareness, not from panic but from presence. Your decisions will have depth, not just speed. Your progress will have meaning, not just metrics. And even when things don't go as planned, you will not crumble, because your foundation is not built on outcomes, it's built on trust. To live this way is not to float aimlessly. It is to move in harmony with the invisible current that has always been guiding you. A current that sees beyond your fear, beyond your past, beyond your limited perspective. A current that has brought you this far and will not abandon you now. It has carried galaxies into place. It has orchestrated sunrises for millennia. Surely it can handle the unfolding of your path. Your only task is to stop resisting, start listening, and move with the flow. Not because you've given up, but because you finally understand you were never alone in this. You never had to do it all. You only had to trust. You rise by returning to yourself. Not the self you've performed to please others, not the self you've shaped to survive, not the version of you the world expected, but the one that existed before all the noise. That inner self, the quiet truth that has always lived beneath the layers, is where your real power begins. And the strange thing is, the more you try to improve yourself by becoming someone else, the farther. No one is coming, stand up, take the throne, and rule your life like a king. Your power begins the moment you stop waiting. There comes a moment, quiet and still, when you realize that no one else is steering the ship. You are the captain. You always were. But for so long you sat in the passenger seat, waiting for someone else to take the wheel, hoping that a better future would arrive without your hands getting dirty. You waited for the right people, the perfect timing, the divine intervention, the miracle that would shift the weight from your shoulders to someone else's. But it never came. Not because the world is cruel, but because it was never meant to. Responsibility is not a burden, it is the essence of freedom. When you accept that no one is going to carry you, fix you, or build your life for you, something remarkable happens. You become powerful. You step into a different realm of existence, but as the author of it. To take responsibility is to awaken from the sleep of blame. It is to rise and say, this is mine. My thoughts, my choices, my life, all of it. That is where royalty begins, not in bloodlines or titles, but in ownership. Many seek power in the form of control over others, but the deepest power lies in self-control. A king, a true king, does not command from insecurity. He does not shout to be heard. He does not demand respect to feel worthy. His authority flows from within, from the discipline of his own mind, the clarity of his own choices, and the steadiness of his own path. He knows that to rule others without ruling oneself it will fall. Taking responsibility is not about guilt, it is not about shame, it is about reclaiming the part of yourself that you have scattered in excuses. It is looking at the mess and saying, yes, I created this, but I can also uncreate it. I can rise from it. You stop waiting for someone to understand you, to validate your pain, to offer you the blueprint for success. You begin building in silence, knowing that the real work is invisible. The inner structure, the scaffolding of your spirit must be solid before anything external can endure. There is no honor in remaining small just because others fear your growth. And yet many do. They dim their light. They soften their voice. They retreat from risk because they fear the weight that comes with choosing themselves fully. But what they don't realize is that the weight is not a curse. It is the crown. It teaches you how to stand taller, how to walk straighter, how to speak from truth instead of need. The more responsibility you accept, the more power you reclaim. That is the sacred exchange. When you make excuses, you hand your power away. When you blame, you build walls around your potential. But when you stand in front of your life and say, I am responsible, you break those walls down, and in that rubble, you find tools, you find lessons, you find the quiet strength that was always inside you, waiting to be called upon. This doesn't mean you won't fall. You will. It doesn't mean you won't feel pain. You must. But every fall becomes fuel. Every mistake becomes a mirror. You don't run from them anymore. You study them, learn from them, grow through them. You understand that you are both the problem and the solution, and in that realization you become untouchable. No one can take away what you build with your own hands. No one can destroy what you strengthen in your own soul. The world may shake, the storms may come, but you will not be moved, because your power is not borrowed, it is earned. It is rooted. It is real. Self-responsibility is not something you do once. It is a way of being, a daily decision to show up fully, to answer the call of your own life, to walk as if your steps matter, because they do. Every moment you choose responsibility over comfort, truth over denial, discipline over chaos, you carve your legacy. And that legacy is not made of gold or applause. It is made of something much rarer. Sovereignty. You rise not above others, but above who you used to be. You stop seeking kings to follow because you have become one. And not by force, not by title, but by choice. Quietly, relentlessly, completely. Since childhood, you were told that if you ever fall, someone will catch you, that if you ever feel lost, someone will come to find you, that if life becomes too heavy, someone will arrive to carry the weight. And so you built your world around that promise, waiting for the hand to reach down, for the voice to call your name, for the answer to appear outside of you. But it never does. Or if it does, it's fleeting, incomplete, never quite enough to lift the emptiness that lingers. This is the illusion, the quiet and dangerous lie that someone else is coming to make your life better, that love will heal you if you find the right person, that success will arrive if you simply stay hopeful, that peace will descend if you pray long enough. You look outward, beyond yourself, again and again, hoping for a rescue from the very reality you refuse to claim. But no one told you that sometimes the rescue is the fall itself, that no one shows up because it's not their place to, that your loneliness is not a punishment but an invitation, that the pain you want someone to pull you out of is the same pain trying to push you inward. You see, life is not cruel. It is precise. It will strip away every illusion you cling to until only the truth remains. And the truth is, you are the one, the only one. This is not said to scare you, but to awaken you, because as long as you believe someone else is responsible for your joy, your healing, your path, you will remain a beggar in your own life. You will wait at doors that were never meant to open. You will shout into the wind and mistake the echo as a response. You will keep handing your power to people who do not know what to do with it. The illusion of rescue is subtle. It wears many masks. Sometimes it looks like hope, sometimes like dependence, sometimes like love. It convinces you that if you just hold on a little longer, someone will understand. Someone will fix it. Someone will arrive. But deep down you know that no arrival ever changes the core of your being. You may feel lifted for a moment, distracted. Real change never comes from outside. It is an inner revolt, a quiet decision to stop waiting and start becoming. So you reach the edge, the illusion cracks, the silence grows louder, you realize that the rescue is not late, it was never coming, and strangely, in that moment of despair, something new emerges. Clarity. The absence of help forces you to look within, and there, beneath the layers of fear and hope and fantasy, you find something stronger than rescue. You find your own strength. No one else can walk your path. No one else can understand your chaos the way you do. No one else has the map to your soul. They may walk beside you for a time, they may point out a few stars, but they cannot steer your ship. That is your sacred task. And if you abandon it, you drift. If you take it up, you rise. The truth is never easy, but it is always clean. The idea that someone will come save you is comforting, but it's the kind of comfort that dulls the edge you need to grow. It is better to be raw and ready than soothed and stagnant. It is better to cry in truth than smile in illusion. When you stop searching for a rescuer, you start searching for yourself, and that search is the beginning of everything. That's when your voice begins to carry weight. That's when your choices start to shape reality. That's when you stop being a character in a story and become the author. You realize that every moment of waiting was a delay of your own becoming. And now, you no longer delay, you act, you rise. And you do so not because you are unworthy of help, but because you finally understand that help cannot substitute for self-awareness, that healing cannot be handed to you, that peace must be chosen, not given. The illusion dissolves, and in its place a deeper truth settles in your bones. You never needed saving. You only needed to remember who you are. There is a strange wisdom in suffering, though most try to run from it. Pain is often seen as a mistake, a flaw in the design, something to be avoided, silenced, or numbed. But suffering has a voice, and if you listen closely, it speaks of change. It never arrives without purpose. It never lingers without reason. It is not the end of you. It is the beginning of what you are too afraid to become. Hardship breaks the illusion of control. It shows you how fragile your plans were, how easily the world moves without your permission. You are brought to your knees, stripped of everything you thought defined you. And in that rawness, the truth begins to speak. Not the kind you read in books, but the kind carved into your bones by experience, the kind that comes only through fire. You learn that comfort does not teach. It sustains, but it does not awaken. It is hardship that opens your eyes and demands that you change. Not because you want to, but because who you were before the pain is no longer enough to survive what you now face. So a shedding begins. The old self resists, holds on, begs to remain, but life does not negotiate with stagnation. And in that breaking, something stirs. The soul grows in the dark, not in the light. When everything falls apart, when you are forced to feel what you've spent years avoiding, you begin to see what's real. You begin to understand that transformation is not a gentle shift. It is a violent reordering of your inner world. It is a collapse followed by quiet rebuilding. And it is lonely, but necessary. There are parts of you that were never meant to survive. The ego that relied on validation, the mind that clung to control, the heart that feared abandonment. These parts must die for you to be reborn. And they do not go quietly. They scream, they fight, they make you doubt the path. But if you endure, if you surrender to the process, something sacred begins to form in their absence. You become resilient, not hardened, but aware. You no longer chase peace in perfection. You find it in presence. You stop asking why things happen to you and start asking what they are trying to reveal within you. You begin to understand that pain is not the opposite of growth, but the doorway to it. The more deeply you are broken, the more spacious you become for light to enter. There are no shortcuts through the fire. It must burn through every illusion. It must teach you how to let go, how to trust, how to live without clinging. The ones who rise are not the ones who avoided the flames, but the ones who walked through them with open eyes. They are not untouched by pain. They are shaped by it, strengthened by it, softened in all the right places and sharpened in others. You carry the scars, but not with shame. They are not signs of weakness. They are proof that you survived the unthinkable and emerged with deeper wisdom. They remind you that you are capable of more than you believed, that your limits were not where you thought they were, that the end was not the end, but a threshold. Transformation is not about becoming someone else. It is about revealing what was buried beneath fear. The hardship does not create your strength. It reveals it. It does not give you courage. It shows you that courage was always there, waiting. You were never meant to be protected from life. You were meant to be initiated by it. And this initiation is not grand or glamorous. It is quiet, often painful. Always personal. You begin to thank the very things that once broke you. Not because the pain was beautiful, but because it was real. Because it woke you up. Because it taught you to see clearly. And in that clarity you find something priceless. Yourself. Not the version shaped by expectation or fear, but the one that was forged in truth. the one that can stand in the storm, not because it doesn't shake, but because it has root. And now you no longer fear the dark, you understand it, you respect it, because you have walked through it and emerged transformed, not polished, not perfect, but whole. There comes a moment when a person must stop searching for power in the world and begin reclaiming the power that has always lived quietly within. It is easy to be swept away by the noise of the outside, to believe that authority comes from position, that control lies in possessions, that freedom is granted by others. But these are passing illusions. The real kingdom is built inwardly, not on land or gold, but on awareness. Inner sovereignty begins the moment you stop outsourcing your peace, when you no longer allow the shifting moods of others to dictate your sense of worth, when your joy is not on loan, dependent on approval or conditions. It is not arrogance, nor is it rebellion. It is the gentle strength of knowing that you belong to yourself, that your thoughts are your own, that your choices are sacred, that your life is not a negotiation. To rule inwardly is not to suppress emotion, but to understand it, not to silence the mind, but to observe it with detachment. When you become the watcher, not the storm, you realize how many of your reactions were habits inherited from others, not truths discovered through experience. You were trained to react, to please, to adjust, to follow. But there is a deeper path, one of stillness, reflection, and conscious action. This path is not walked by many, for it requires solitude, honesty, and discipline. It demands that you stop blaming the world and begin examining your role in every pattern. It asks you to take back the reins from all the people, beliefs, and fears you've handed them to. It is easier, of course, to say you are a victim of life than to accept that you are the author of it. But sovereignty is not about comfort. It is about truth. The more deeply you return to yourself, the more you see how much you've given away. Your energy scattered in arguments that served nothing. Your time spent seeking validation from those who barely understood you. Your essence diluted to fit in. But the king does not ask permission to be himself. He does not lower his voice to be accepted. He does not beg for loyalty. He stands tall in his own knowing, whether seen or unseen. When you no longer need to prove your worth, you return to your center. That center is not loud, but it is immovable. It is not cruel, but it is unbending. It does not need applause. It simply is. And the more you touch that center, the more you begin to live from it, no longer easily swayed by opinions or pulled by chaos. You begin to make decisions from a deeper place. You begin to see what is true for you. Not what is popular, not what is expected, but what aligns with the rhythm of your own soul. This is the mark of inner sovereignty, the ability to walk your path even when it's silent, even when no one cheers, even when it costs you comfort. Because the reward is not found in what you gain from others. It is found in the peace that arises from within when your outer life reflects your inner truth. And that peace cannot be bought or borrowed. It must be earned through self-mastery. To be sovereign is to know that freedom is not given. It is claimed. It is not found in escape, but in responsibility. The responsibility to shape your mind, to discipline your heart, to rise when you fall, to speak with intention, to act with integrity. It is the quiet honor of knowing that you are not perfect, but you are accountable. You do not control the world, but you govern your inner world. This is not a throne anyone can see. It is not adorned with jewels or robes. It lives in how you carry yourself, how you respond to chaos, how you hold boundaries without anger, how you love without losing yourself. It is not about being above others, it is about no longer being beneath yourself. And when you find that place, you no longer seek to rule anything outside of you, because you have found the only kingdom worth protecting, the one within. There is a kind of silence that is not emptiness, but power, a space not of absence, but of presence. Solitude, when embraced rather than feared, becomes a crucible in which the self is purified, refined, and revealed. Most resist being alone because they have never truly met themselves. They seek company not out of love, but out of escape. But the one who learns to stand as no one else can. Solitude has always been the beginning of great strength. The individual who walks into the quiet willingly does not do so out of weakness, but out of courage. It is a confrontation with the raw essence of one's being, stripped of distraction and noise. And it is in that silence that the truth becomes loud. What you fear, what you desire, what you pretend to be, these things emerge not as ideas, but as living forces within you. They cannot be ignored. They demand your presence. To walk the path of heroic solitude is not to become indifferent, but to become inwardly secure. It is not isolation, but independence. It is not about turning away from others, but about no longer depending on them to define your worth. This solitude is not the absence of love. It is the deepening of it. You begin to understand that your value does not arise from being needed, but from being whole. And in that wholeness, you offer something far greater than need. You offer presence. The hero's journey has always begun with a departure, a leaving behind of the familiar. But this departure is not always physical. Often it is a separation from the false self, the one that was built to please, to conform, to be accepted. When that self begins to crack, it feels like falling. But it is falling upward. It is the descent into the deeper layers of your being, where silence. It is here in the stillness that the real battle begins, not against the world, but against the parts of yourself that have clung to comfort, to certainty, to identity. These parts do not go quietly. They resist. They whisper doubts. They conjure fears. And yet something within you does not move. It watches. It listens. And slowly it begins to rise, not in noise, but in knowing. There is a fierce clarity that grows in solitude. You begin to see what truly matters and what was merely noise dressed as necessity. You learn to let go without bitterness. You begin to carry yourself differently, not as someone seeking approval, but as someone who has made peace with their own company. And when you return to the world, you bring something rare, an unshakable center. You are no longer easily swayed, for you have already met the storm within and survived it. This solitude is heroic because it demands discipline. It requires that you show up for yourself even when no one else does. It asks that you stay present through the discomfort, that you face the thoughts that once sent you running, that you choose growth over distraction. It is the quiet, invisible work of becoming real, and though no one may see the battle, you will know it was won. Many will never understand the strength it takes to walk this path. They will mistake your stillness for withdrawal, your silence for sadness, your peace for passivity. But you will know the weight of what you let go of, the depth of what you found, you will know that solitude did not break you. It revealed you. It did not leave you empty, it left you clean. And so you walk, not above others, but no longer beneath yourself. You speak not to impress, but to express. You give not to be loved, but because you are love. The heroic solitude becomes not a refuge, but a foundation. From it you build a life not based on fear or approval, but on truth. And that truth does not waver. It stands quietly like a mountain. And you stand with it whole, unshaken, free. The journey through heroic solitude is not a retreat from life, but a powerful return to the essence of who you truly are. In the silence, you discover not absence, but presence, your own. You shed the layers that were never yours to carry, and step into a quiet strength that does not demand recognition to exist. This solitude is not weakness. It is refinement. It is where illusions fall away and truth takes root. And when you emerge from it, you do not come back as you were. You come back sovereign, whole, and grounded in a kind of power that nothing outside you can offer and nothing within you can ever lose.